Sometimes one little thing can change everything, and that's exactly what happened to me, Judy, just 3 weeks before my long-awaited engagement. I'm 30, and I was excited about the upcoming wedding with Patrick, my partner, with whom we spent 5 years together. All this time, we have been carefully building our relationship, overcoming life's obstacles and making each other happy. We dreamed of a wedding, of a moment when we could become husband and wife in front of family and friends. And finally, we planned this engagement party, diving into the details, trying to make this day perfect. Every moment was thought out to the smallest detail, and I already imagined how everything would go, how beautifully we would decorate the hall, how the music would sound, how we would laugh and hug, feeling like the happiest people in the world. But then, like a bolt from the blue, the bell rang. It was my mom. I replied, anticipating her warm words of support, but what I heard shocked me. She didn't hesitate to say that we needed to cancel the party that we had been preparing for so long, at her insistence. I was stunned, almost dropped the phone in surprise. "Mom, are you serious?" I barely managed to say, hoping it was some kind of wild joke. But, alas, it was not a joke. She explained with confidence that Catherine, my younger sister, had been promoted, and we were now celebrating her success on the very day my engagement was planned. Catherine has always been a favorite of my parents. It seemed to me that I was used to it, but now it was completely beyond the bounds. "Mom, come on," I tried to stay calm, feeling anger gradually cover me. "I've been planning this for so long, and I'm not going to cancel it just because Catherine got a new position." "Don't be selfish, Judy," she insisted in her stern voice. "This is a big event for your sister. All the same guests, just a slightly different party, that's all. Just reschedule." I felt a throbbing anger fill me. My whole being protested against this humiliating demand. "Mom, this is my engagement," I said in a strangled voice, gathering all my strength to remain calm. "I won't cancel it." "Judy," she began to scream, her voice full of annoyance and dislike deafening me. It's like the pain I felt as a child has returned. I listened in silence, and it seemed that her voice was making its way to the very depths of my consciousness, but soon I just hung up. Putting the phone down on the table, I felt the past rush over me in a torrent of memories. I was always in the background, and Catherine was in the first place. Whether it was a birthday that my parents forgot until Grandma reminded them, or small everyday events where I became invisible over and over again. I remembered my 18th birthday, a random celebration organized at the last moment when my parents bought a cake from the nearest supermarket and some kind of gift card. It's a pathetic sight, especially against the backdrop of that grandiose 5-day party they organized for Catherine when she was 15. Immersed in these memories, I barely noticed Patrick enter the room. He saw my face and immediately realized that something was wrong. "Judy, what's going on?" "What is it?" he asked, sitting down next to me. I looked at him and couldn't help myself, starting to tell him everything, about my mother's call, and her absurd demands, and all the painful memories that came flooding back to me because of this conversation. Patrick listened without interrupting, and I could see his face getting darker with every word. When I finished, he said decisively, "We're not canceling anything." I nodded, feeling incredibly relieved and grateful for his support, as if I'd finally found the protection I'd been missing for so long. I felt a cold lump rise in my throat, making me realize the full extent of what my mother had done. As soon as the conversation with Julie ended, I remained sitting in silence, staring at the phone screen, trying to figure out what to do next. This is not just an attempt to ruin my evening, this is a betrayal deeply rooted, like old grudges that my mother had been accumulating for years, now burst out like uninvited guests at the most inopportune moment. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm the throbbing anger that was making everything inside tremble. Patrick, noticing my tense state, was next to me again, put his arm around my shoulders and said with warmth in his voice, "Judy, we'll figure this out. You deserve this day to be special, and I will help you make it so." His words sounded like a quiet promise, able to dispel the fog of disappointment hanging over me. I nodded, feeling the heaviness in my soul recede a little. With Patrick, I really felt in the first place. Next to him, I always knew that I was understood and appreciated. I know, but why can't they ever put me first? Just once? I whispered, feeling a new wave of disappointment wash over me. Why do I always remain a minor figure for my family? Because they don't know you, Patrick replied firmly. But I know. And I always put you first. I looked at him, and despite the pain, I smiled. I know, I replied quietly. That's why I'm marrying you, silly. He laughed, and I felt the icy weight in my chest slowly melt away, leaving room for determination. That night we sat together for a long time, thinking about how to make this day perfect, despite all the obstacles. We reviewed the plans, checked the lists, and added to the details everything that could make the holiday truly ours. In the end, I managed to fall asleep with a quiet feeling of peace, with the thought that, finally, this is my moment, and I won't let anyone ruin it. The next morning, I woke up determined to forget about my mother's late-night call and focus on the upcoming party. I had so many things to do: send the last invitations, make sure the decorations were ready on time, and finish all the other preparations. But as soon as I was immersed in these tasks, the phone vibrated, pulling me out of my thoughts. A message from my cousin Julie popped up on the screen. "Hey, Judy, are you all right? Is Patrick okay? I heard that you broke up." I stared at the screen in complete disbelief. Where did such a strange idea come from? I quickly typed in an answer, reassuring her that everything was fine between Patrick and me, and asked where she got this information from in the first place. The answer came almost immediately. "It's weird, and Olivia said that your mom told her that your engagement was off." Everything snapped inside. It was like a heavy stone fell on my heart, and I felt this betrayal again. Without the slightest hesitation, I called Julie, demanding an explanation. "I do not know, Judy," she replied, confused. "Aunt Olivia called last night and said that your mom assured her that you and Patrick had a big fight and decided to cancel everything. She asked everyone to come to Catherine's party instead of yours." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Julie, it's all a lie. Patrick and I are still together, and our engagement party is still going to happen." I blurted out, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. Mom wanted me to cancel everything for Catherine, but I refused. After a short pause, Julie replied sympathetically, "Oh, Judy, I'm really sorry that you have to go through this." I did not know. We spent the next hour on the phone trying to reconstruct the picture of what happened. It turned out that my mom called almost everyone we planned to invite and told them her version of events, actually trying to redirect everyone to Catherine's holiday. "Julie, can you help me fix this mess?" I asked quietly, feeling that I was completely exhausted. "Tell everyone that the engagement is still in force." "Of course, Judy," she replied without hesitation. "I'll start calling people right now." As soon as I hung up the phone, I felt a strange sense of relief. I was standing at Aunt Nicole's door, excited and a little nervous. Her house has always been a kind of refuge for me, a place where I could feel warmth and understanding. Her soft voice and unconditional support helped me get through all those moments when I felt unnecessary in my own family. And here I am standing here again, on the eve of such an important event in my life, and I need her understanding more than ever. I knocked gently on the door and heard muffled voices from the living room. The familiar smell of fresh pastries, which my aunt loved to cook in the morning, permeated the air, filling the house with comfort. Aunt Nicole always knew how to create an atmosphere of peace, even when chaos reigned around. "Judy, honey, what a blessing that you came in." Her joyful voice rang out, and she immediately hurried to me, wrapping me in a warm embrace. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but I held back, not allowing myself to break down at that moment. Thank you, Aunt Nicole. I wanted to talk to you about our engagement, I replied, trying not to show my excitement. My aunt nodded, inviting me in. When I crossed the threshold of the living room, my heart stopped for a moment. My mom was sitting on the couch. Her face was stern, but I noticed that there was some surprise in her eyes when she saw me. "Oh, Judy, we were just discussing you," Mom said in a cold tone, as if there were no lies that she was spreading like plucked rose petals around our engagement. I wanted to leave, but a sense of justice and a desire to finally put everything in its place held me back. "Have you discussed me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm and even though everything was boiling inside. "I wonder what exactly you discussed about me." Mom snorted and, crossing her arms over her chest, looked at me as if preparing for a new round of confrontation. "We were talking about maybe you're in a bit of a hurry with this engagement," she replied, emphasizing each word as if it were a venomous rebuke. I felt a cold stream of anger pierce me from head to toe. "In a hurry?" I asked, barely holding back my emotions. "You called all our relatives, said that Patrick and I had broken up, and redirected everyone to Catherine's party. And now you dare to accuse me of being in a hurry?" Aunt Nicole looked at us in silence, but I could see understanding and quiet sympathy in her eyes. Her presence was a support for me in this conversation, and I, feeling her support, continued. "Mom, why can't you just be happy for me? Why do you need to destroy everything that is dear to me?" Standing in the middle of the living room, I felt anger give way to painful emptiness. Deep down, I always knew that my family preferred Catherine, the favorite, the one who met their expectations. But the realization that my mother was capable of spreading such monstrous lies about me still hit my heart, leaving an unpleasant taste of betrayal. Maria, confused and realizing that her false accusations were exposed, slowly looked up at me. There was regret mixed with uncertainty in her gaze. I saw her struggling with the need to admit that she believed a lie without bothering to listen to me. "Judy," she began in a barely audible voice, "I really didn't know you felt like this. I was just thinking that maybe you are. You're jealous of Catherine's success." I smiled bitterly. How many times have I heard the same words over the years? Whether it was grades at school, athletic success, or a career, I always stayed in Catherine's shadow. And no matter how hard I tried, it was never enough for them. "Jealous?" I asked, barely able to keep the tremor out of my voice. "Do you really think it's all about jealousy? I just want my family to be happy for me for once, without comparison with Catherine, without eternal attempts to give her the palm tree at the expense of my achievements." Aunt Nicole, who was standing next to me, reached out to my hand and squeezed it gently, expressing sympathy as best she could. "Oh, Judy, honey, we should have known better. Forgive us for believing this ridiculous story. We couldn't even think that it was a lie. We are the truth. We didn't know you had such a hard time." I saw genuine remorse in their eyes, but that didn't make the pain that was sitting inside me any less. How many times have I tried to be heard? How many times have I looked for support, only to see them take Catherine's side? Years of suppressed resentment and wounded dignity had weighed heavily on me, and now that the truth had finally been voiced, I realized that simple remorse and empathy could not heal me. "I just want you to understand," I said quietly, trying to control my emotions, "what this engagement means to me. It's not just a party, it's not just a formality. This is the moment when I finally feel happy and confident. Patrick is my choice, and I don't want anyone, not even my mother, to try to ruin it." Maria and Aunt Nicole looked at me, and there was something new in their gazes, the understanding that I had been looking for so long, but so rarely found in my family. I only managed to briefly exchange smiles with relatives and friends when I noticed a small group of guests starting to gather near the dance floor, whispering and pointing somewhere towards the doors. My heart skipped a beat. Maybe it was just an unexpected guest or some kind of pleasant surprise. I caught Patrick's eye, and he shook my hand lightly, comforting me, as if he knew that my anxiety had not completely left me. When the crowd parted slightly, I saw Catherine. She stood at the entrance, slightly embarrassed, as if she did not fully understand how her appearance here could be perceived. Behind her, I noticed my mother holding her hand, as if in the hope that filial affection would serve as a pass for her to this hall. There was something like an expectation of forgiveness on their faces, but I could no longer be sure that I was ready to give it so easily. For a moment, the whole room was silent, and all attention focused on us, on Catherine and me, on us and our mother, who entered, as always, with an unyielding face. Even the music seemed to stop for a moment, allowing us to look into each other's eyes, as if preparing for the inevitable conversation. Catherine took the first step, slowly approaching me. Her face was agitated and a little scared, as if she understood how fragile the line was between an old grudge and the opportunity to start all over again. "Judy," she began, her voice trembling. "I'm here. We came to congratulate you. I'm really sorry if I ever took up too much space in your life, and maybe didn't give you the opportunity to shine the way you deserve." I could hear the words she was saying, but every sound echoed the pain of those years when I was always in the background. Mom was looking at me, her gaze was firm, but I caught something new in it, bitterness, maybe even shame. Did she realize that her actions, that her attempts to keep control of everything turned into a split? Listening to her angry words, I felt a wave of old disappointment rising inside me again, but this time she could not destroy the fragile but bright peace that I found after our engagement. The events of that night, the full hall of relatives and friends, grandma's dancing, carefree and happy faces, all this seemed to me like a warm wave sheltering from her cold, poisonous words. I didn't answer, letting my mom let out all the accumulated irritation. She went on to talk about how I had allegedly humiliated Catherine, that I had taken her moment away from her, that Catherine's party was empty because everyone chose to come to me. She said it as if she sincerely believed that I had spent this evening on purpose to prove something to her, as if my engagement itself was an act of defiance. But the truth was, I was finally free of the need to please them. When her words died down, I took a pause and sighed, trying to keep my voice even. "Mom," I said quietly, "I didn't ask you to choose between me and Catherine. I just wanted my family to support me at this important moment. I deserve happiness, and if you don't want to be a part of it, then maybe that's not my problem." Through the silence, I heard her breathing become ragged, as if for the first time she realized that her power over me was not the same as before. "You've always been so ungrateful," she whispered, cold anger trembling in her voice. "We did everything for you, and this is how you repay?" The words hit me in the gut, but instead of pain, I felt relieved, as if I had finally heard something I had known for a long time. Mom tried to manipulate my feelings by making me feel guilty, but that old trick didn't work anymore. All that evening, spent with friends and relatives who were sincerely happy for me, I left inside a calm confidence in myself and my decisions. "Mom," I said softly but firmly, "I don't have to feel guilty for finding happiness." When the door closed behind Mr. and Mrs. Adam, I was left in silence, feeling anger and sadness flare up inside. Catherine didn't just challenge me, she crossed the line, deliberately tried to destroy everything I had worked so hard to build. Her actions were not just a whim, it was a deliberate effort to destroy my happiness, as if her anger and envy had reached such a fever pitch that she was ready to go to extreme measures. I took a deep breath, trying to control my growing anxiety. My thoughts were racing, trying to find a solution that would put everything in its place at once. Lately, I've been feeling more and more how the space between Catherine and me is narrowing. It seemed that my every joy, every victory only adds fuel to the fire of her discontent, as if my happiness deprived her of something important. But now she's crossed the line. When I returned to the room, I saw Patrick standing by the window, holding my threatening message from Catherine in his hand. His jaw was tense, and his eyes were burning with indignation. "This is just out of line, Judy," he said, looking at me intently. Your family, your sister, they're trying to destroy us just to bolster her ego. I quietly walked up to him, clasping his hand, and replied, I know. But, Patrick, I can't let her ruin our lives, even if I have to sever all ties once and for all to do that. He looked at me with a sad smile, hugging me to him. We'll make it, Judy, he whispered, confident and warm. We will overcome everything, no matter how they try to stop us. Over the next few days, I focused entirely on my work and preparations for the wedding. I avoided talking about Catherine, trying not to think about her threats and not let these dark thoughts overshadow my happiness. But there was still a smoldering anxiety inside me. I took a deep breath and, feeling the weight of my experience coming on, decided to show my grandmother the latest photos and messages from my engagement. I slowly scrolled through the photos on my phone. The warmest moments of the evening were captured there, our happy, serene faces surrounded by friends and relatives, sincere smiles and hugs, the hall flooded with light and fun, as if the whole world had become ours for a moment. It was an evening when, for the first time in a long time, I felt complete acceptance and calmness. At those moments, it seemed to me that I was safe, that there were people around me who were sincerely happy for me, who saw me for who I was, without comparisons, without eternal rivalry with Catherine. Every toast, every congratulatory gesture, every touch warmed me then, as if filling the void that had tormented me for so long. That's why I decided to show these pictures to my grandmother. I didn't need to find special words to describe how I felt, because I knew that she would understand it better than anyone else. Grandma looked at the photos for a long time. Her face was focused, but calm, as if she not only saw me in these pictures, but felt every moment of that joy with me. Then, without saying a word, she took my hands in hers. Her fingers, although a little weaker, still retained the warmth and strength that I remembered from childhood. She squeezed my hands tightly, as if trying to convey to me her inner strength and confidence. Judy, honey, she finally spoke, and her voice was filled with gentleness, but there was also a hardness in it, as if the words she was about to say were familiar to her and had been born by long years of experience and wisdom. Sometimes even the closest people are not able to see your light. They are so absorbed in their feelings that they cannot really appreciate you, see what you really are. Perhaps they are too self-centered, too preoccupied with their own happiness to understand yours. But that doesn't mean you have to let them put out their lights. Her words penetrated to the very depths of my soul, covering me with a wave of peace and understanding. Grandma, the only one who has always seen me for who I am, who has always stood by my side, despite difficult relationships with other members of our family, has once again confirmed the confidence that has eluded me for a long time. I can see how much this situation hurts you, how much it hurts you that they don't support you. But, Judy, sometimes it's worth letting go of expectations and realizing that not everyone can appreciate you. You have to move forward and hold on to those who sincerely rejoice in your happiness, she continued. Allow yourself to be happy, even if it means that you will go the other way. Her words left an indelible mark on me, as if they paved a new path that did not need to be confirmed with my mother, my sister, or anyone else. The next morning, I woke up to the incessant buzzing of the phone. A glance at the screen confirmed my worst fears. Endless, angry messages from my parents were waiting for me. My heart ached when I started reading them. How dare you record our private conversations, screeched a message from his mother. You are just a vile, ungrateful traitor, she scribbled, adding many accusations, each of which painfully beat against my heart, like a ricochet of pain, old, deeply embedded in me for years. His father's message was no less cruel. I can't believe that you stooped to secretly record us and then use it against us. You betrayed our family for the last time. The words burned in his eyes, leaving a feeling of emptiness and final loss. Even now, when I tried to show the truth, I found myself in the role of guilty again. It seemed that no matter how I tried to convey my pain to them, it always turned against me. Each of their messages, each accusation filled me with a strange, aching feeling, as if this was the last breath of a relationship that had kept me in the shackles of fear and anxiety for a long time. I let the phone slide to the side and just sat listening to the silence, which seemed both frightening and liberating. A long-hidden truth rose up deep inside me. I could no longer allow these people to manipulate my feelings and turn my happiness into their tool to control me. A few weeks after that breakup, I was trying to rebuild my life. I went to work, surrounded myself with those who really cared about me. I knew that I needed to focus on the future and not on the pain of the past, although it still sounded quietly in the depths of my consciousness. Patrick became my anchor in this storm. He supported me in every little thing, tried to brighten up my days, surround me with care, show that I was worthy of love and respect, that I was valuable, no matter how my family treated me. But Catherine had other plans. Less than a month has passed since we finally broke up with my parents, as I began to receive strange messages from mutual acquaintances. At first they were neutral, even polite questions, but soon they became much more unambiguous. I found out that Catherine is spreading rumors about me, full of lies and hatred. In her version of the story, I turned into an attention-seeking sister who betrayed the family for personal gain, and then slandered her parents, exposing them in a bad light in front of her grandmother. Catherine told everyone that I supposedly always needed to be the center of attention, that I was ready to ruin any holiday if it would help me get my own. Her actions seemed to become more insistent and venomous, as if she couldn't let me find peace until her bitterness and anger incinerated everything around me. Plunging into the pre-wedding chores, I finally felt a slight hope for happiness begin to grow through the thick darkness of the experience. When I was able to distract myself with the details of wedding planning, the severity of the events with Catherine, my parents, and their poisonous accusations receded into the background. It turned out that the wedding was not just a joyful event, but also a real healing, a new opportunity to rethink your life, create something just for Patrick and me, build your own future. We have chosen a great place, a fabulous garden filled with magic and light. There were thick rose bushes all over the garden, entwined with delicate greenery, and tall trees covering the alleys with shade, through which the sun's rays penetrated. In the center of the garden stood a charming gazebo with carved white columns, as if descended from the pages of ancient novels. It seemed to me that we had chosen the perfect place. It seemed to promise in itself the beginning of a clean, new life. Patrick and I stood by the gazebo, enjoying its harmony in silence. I closed my eyes and imagined our wedding day, how we would say yes to each other in the open air, surrounded by the scent of flowers and warm sunlight. It was the perfect place to make promises, and I knew I wanted to remember every moment of that day. Can you imagine, Judy? Patrick's voice rang out next to her. In a few weeks we'll be here, surrounded by our friends, whom we can really be proud of, and, most importantly, without all this old drama. I smiled, feeling the tension that had accumulated over the past months gradually ease with his words. We stood there, immersed in silence, and enjoyed the peace that seemed to have finally settled into our lives. But shortly after that moment of peace, when I was returning home, I received an unexpected message. I stood in front of the mirror in the bridal room, admiring the reflection and adjusting the delicate lace veil that fell smoothly over my shoulders. My heart was beating faster than ever, and there was a feeling in my chest that I could hardly describe, a mixture of excitement, joy, and bittersweet. Today was the day I had dreamed of, imagined so many times, and although the path to this day turned out to be winding, I knew that I was exactly where I should be. I looked at myself carefully in the mirror, as if hoping to see in the reflection not only the bride, but also the new, empowered woman I had become in recent months. The white dress clung softly to my figure, its fabric flowing down like a stream, giving me a feeling of weightlessness. I could hardly believe that this day was mine. I thought about those who were with me in difficult moments, who supported me, who helped me cope with the storm, who saw me in moments of weakness and happiness. These people, each of whom has left a bright mark on my life, have gathered here today to share this moment with me. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness, thinking about the empty places on our guest list. The absence of my parents and Catherine was felt, but it was a relief that I didn't have to pretend, didn't have to adjust or restrain myself. I knew that my friends, Patrick's relatives, and grandmother accepted me unconditionally, and that was the most important thing. At that moment, there was a soft knock on the door. I turned around and saw my grandmother. She was elegantly dressed, her eyes shone with pride and love, and a light, understanding smile played on her face. "Oh, Judy, darling," she said, barely holding back tears, "you look absolutely gorgeous." I couldn't help but step up to her and hug her tightly, feeling her warm, familiar embrace soothe my heart, which was still beating, as if waiting for something incredible. "Grandma, thank you for everything," I whispered, barely holding back my emotions. "Thank you for always believing in me, even when others couldn't. Thank you for supporting me when I didn't know what to do next." She gently pulled away, stroked my cheek and smiled, her eyes filled with tenderness and pride. "My dear," she said, softly but firmly, "you should be proud of yourself. You have chosen your path, and now you are starting a new life surrounded by love. This is exactly what a real family is, people who stay close, no matter what, who believe in you and support you. Don't ever forget that." Her words sank deep into my heart, and I felt confidence and calmness spreading throughout my body. I knew that today's decision was the right one, and even though it wasn't easy for me, but now I could finally start a new life. A few minutes later, I stood in an arch surrounded by flowers and watched Patrick, smiling, waiting for me at the gazebo. I felt such peace and clarity that I had not felt for many years. Walking down the aisle, I saw the faces of people who were with me in the most difficult moments and rejoiced with me today. Patrick's parents, full of pride, smiled holding each other's hands. My grandmother stealthily wiped away tears, and our friends and family around us gave me their warm smiles. These were my people, my new, real family, those who supported me and showed me what love and loyalty look like. There was joy on their faces, genuine happiness for Patrick and me, as if each of them was a part of the world that he and I had built with such perseverance and faith. When I finally got to Patrick, his eyes, shining with tenderness and love, met my gaze. He gently took my hands in his touch filled me with confidence and calmness. It was as if the whole journey, full of pain and trials, was needed in order to bring me here to him. When we said our vows, I felt the past slipping away with every word, leaving me alone with the present. It was the feeling I had been looking for all my life, and it filled me with confidence that I was where I should be. At the reception, surrounded by laughter and joy, Patrick and I seemed to fly above the ground. At that moment, I realized that our celebration today was not just a wedding, it was a symbol of my new path. The path to myself, where I finally freed myself from the shadow of other people's expectations and resentments, where I became the mistress of my life, in which there will always be a place for love, respect, and kindness. Our first dance began to the sound of our favorite melody, and I, resting my head on Patrick's shoulder, immersed myself in feelings that filled me from head to toe. We swayed to the rhythm, slowly, as if the whole world had stopped, leaving us only for ourselves. This path was not easy, but it led me to this place where I found strength, wisdom, and true happiness. "I love you," Patrick whispered in my ear, and I felt my heart clench with happiness at his words. "I love you too," I replied, and at that moment there was no fear or anxiety left in my soul, only a pure, clear anticipation of the future that we will build together. Now, for the first time in my life, I was ready to move forward into this new future. I was no longer afraid of him. On the contrary, I met him with an open heart, knowing that I had a person next to me who understands and accepts me.